Okay, here I am in my Tier 7 Royal Navy cruiser HMS Fiji. We're on the map Warriors Path, and this is domination mode. I'm going to talk about this game not because it's a spectacular, super crazy game for a Fiji where I do crack it or nothing like that, because I don't. There's some good examples of things to do and not to do in this game. The main one I want to talk about is destroyers. Please don't YOLO rush. Don't overextend yourself. Don't get killed early on in the game, because when you get killed early on in the game, it really puts your team in a bind. They have to do things with ships that really aren't designed to do to try to overcome losing destroyers early in the game. This is a Tier 9 match, but there's only 3 Tier 9 ships between each team. The enemy team has a Fletcher, Keigero, Mahan, and a Shiratsuyu. On my team, I have a Tashkent, a Benson, and 2 Shiratsuyus. So basically what we're looking at is 2 gunboats, 2 destroyer boats. Pretty even matchup. This whole game is actually would be a fairly even matchup, and should have been a really good game. Actually, it wasn't a bad game, but there's examples of just things of just not to do, and it's stuff that you need to pay attention to while you're in your Royal Navy cruisers. So as I'm coming up to sea cap, we spot the Fletcher, and because I have 2 Shiratsuyus over here, they don't want to get in a gunfight with the Fletcher. But then the Fletcher also realized that he's a little bit outgunned also, so he pops a smoke, because he doesn't want to get into a gunfight this early and lose a lot of damage and kind of put himself out of the fight. So he does a smart thing. One of my Shiratsuyus, he smokes up, the other one doesn't. That's fine. The Fletcher smoked up, that's fine also. Not that big of a deal. I'm trying to angle myself away from the sea cap. I'm totally expecting torpedoes to come through. I was considering smoking up right here and getting some damage in, but I decided against it, mostly because I fully expect torpedoes to make it here from the Fletcher well within range. So I see I have an Iowa, a Nagato, and then Atlanta over on the other side of sea cap. So I decide to open up on the Atlanta, as it's the ship that's the most dangerous to my destroyers. It really doesn't have the range that the battleship has, obviously, but it's most dangerous to my destroyers than those battleships with its rate of fire. So I would prefer the Atlanta to be shooting at me than anything else. And I'm also keeping in mind that those battleships were also shooting at me, and I'm using my priority targeting to know how many of them are targeting me. As you can see, the Atlanta's shots are falling short, and that's just what happens with Atlanta shooting at this range. And sure enough, there are the Fletcher torpedoes, exactly what I was expecting. So at this point in the game, the enemy team has already lost a cruiser. And if you look on a mini map, the cruiser died in the E2 position, on the southern part of the E2 square. Completely out of position. But to be honest with you, it's a cruiser at this stage of the game. Not that really big of a deal. They had the cap for a little while. They have B cap. We still haven't capped C cap yet. It's contested, and also B cap is contested. So right now, this is a fairly even game. This is an even game. I'm shooting at the Nagato right now. They're in the cap. One of my destroyers, they're heading out of the cap soon. They're losing ground to stay alive. I understand that. Don't ask me why I wasn't shooting at the Fletcher. I'm not exactly sure why I passed up shots on the Fletcher. I should have been engaging the Fletcher. But I didn't, so that's a little bit of a misplay on my part. The Atlanta's out of my range, but the Nagato's in range for me, and the Iowa's in range also. So at this point, I'm just going to keep resetting cap. I'm just going to keep resetting as much as possible, and every time I get targeted, I'm going to start maneuvering and just try not to get hit, make myself a hard target. But I have a friendly Nagato out in front of me, and he's probably going to dictate a lot of attention from those battleships, and possibly even the Atlanta. So you see right now in quick succession, the enemy team lost 2 destroyers. And if you look on the mini map, one of the destroyers got killed where the cruiser is at, and the other one, the Shiratsuyu, got killed way out of position between B and C cap, south of them in the southern part of them, completely out of position. I'm not exactly sure what the Shiratsuyu was thinking, but that Shiratsuyu was totally out of position. And again, right there you see the 3rd destroyer goes down. They are down 3 destroyers, and it's a 14-minute mark of the game. We have 14 minutes left in the game. And right now, at this point, the enemy team is in a bad position. There's a lone surviving destroyer is at half health. It's a Fletcher. It's a really extremely capable boat, even at half health. But he's a little bit out of position also, And I have a lot of backup, and a lot of my teammates are just on the southern edges of the caps. So the Fletcher is in a bind right now. He's the only eyes and ears left of the team. He's got to perform his duty versus 4 destroyers, 2 gunboats, 2 torpedo boats, and he's half health. He's got a hard one ahead of him. Right now, he's trying to do his best. He gets spotted. It's a bit of a mistake, but he's really trying to do his best. Problem is, he's got a Baltimore that got in on there. Not sure if he's seen it was there. And there goes the 4th destroyer. 13 minutes left in the game, which we got into the game pretty far. But the enemy team has lost all 4 of their destroyers. They're down 5 ships. We've lost 2. We might as well be down a 3rd ship because this Mayoko that you see in front of my ship is AFK. He parked himself there a little while ago, and I'm not sure what was going on. Really not a concern of mine. So, destroyer players, don't put your team into these binds. The destroyers that kill at A cap, you're out of position. You should have just lost ground to save your boat, regroup, caught up with your teammates, tried again in another position instead of beating your head against the wall and getting your boat blown out of the water. So now, the enemy team's in a serious bind, being down, all their destroyers are dead. And it's still not that bad of a game right now. We only have 1 cap, they have a cap, and we still haven't capped C cap. C cap has been contested from the beginning, hasn't been taken by anybody. So the other thing I want to talk about is positioning of Royal Navy cruisers. Royal Navy cruisers, you really shouldn't be pushing out, leading the charge of anything. You have no armor for that. You shouldn't really be pressing the issue too much. Although I tend to do it sometimes, especially in the Fiji, because me and this Fiji just get along really well. But you pretty much want to be the second line supporting fire. Your rate of fire, your damage potential for your AP is really good. As you can see versus Colorado, I'm actually getting some good salvos. And and actually got a kill secure on that. I did some damage to him, but the rest of my teammates pretty much did the bulk of that work. I just happened to get the last salvo win on that. So as you see, that positioning though, I'm detected by radar, but because of where I'm at, it doesn't matter. I'm happy to see that. I'm glad it got burned up because now I know that my destroyer decided to get in there. There's a cooldown to wait for this. But I also know that I got a Nagato and Iowa in a rune in there that my ship really can't afford to get in any open water gun battle with. So again, I'm going to use terrain to my advantage and just keep my thinly armored cruiser in a good defensive position while still being able to do damage against this rune right here. Now I'm unspotted. There's a cyclone up, but I'm within 8 kilometers of him. I'm at 7.8, but I'm still unspotted. He definitely sees the Mayoko because later on you'll see that he actually takes a shot at the Mayoko when I zoom in to show me just shooting at the rune. And basically what I'm doing here is the rune. I'm just shooting at superstructure. Right there you see the rune. Take a pot shot at the Mayoko. But basically what I'm showing is this an example of some good positioning. My team is spotting this target for me, and I'm able to engage it with little to no risk to my own ship. And as you'll see, I get a little comfortable here, and then I put myself into a bad position here fairly soon, not really paying attention to the direction that the 2 battleships took in the B cap, and I actually get myself into a bad position by losing situational awareness on the map. And I get away with it because of that AFK Mayoko back there. I definitely shouldn't have got away with what I'm about to do, and it had a lot to do with the spotting range of me being out of 8 kilometers. But as you see, if I close in on B cap, that I am going to have the Iowa and the Nagato right in front of me. Lucky for me, I have a friendly Iowa out in the western side, southwestern edge of the B cap that they're dealing with. But right here, this is me not paying attention to the mini map and kind of putting myself in a bad position. As you can see right there, the Nagato took a shot at the Mayoko. So the Nagato, I'm definitely spotted. He's not targeting me. I have a feeling that if that Mayoko wasn't there before he swung his guns back around, because they were moving at this, that he would have targeted me and I would have caught that salvo at a bad angle. And at this range, the Nagato could have done some serious damage to me. And I'm still right now trying to recover from my bad positioning, but at the same time doing damage to this battleship is I'm trying to hit him in that sweet spot between his belt armor and his deck. And as you can see, both battleships are taking shots at the AFK Malco behind me, and I believe that's the only reason why that I didn't get damaged seriously in that little movement, me putting myself in a bad position. I think they realized this game was over. Let's just try to farm as much damage as we can. And hey, you know what? I can't fault them for that. But normally, I think I would have been punished for that bad positioning. Because in my opinion, that was bad positioning for me. Because I knew exactly where those battleships were at. I just didn't pay attention to where they were coming out into the B cap. So right here, I just popped my hydro because I don't want this Iowa to come around the island and blow me out of the water. He has the speed to get around there to do some serious damage to me. And I think if I was in the Iowa, I probably would have came around there and just tried to kill the little light cruiser on the other side of that. Even though I know it has torpedoes, but I probably would have done it. He doesn't do it, and that's fine on him. He's actually trying to do what he can do in this game. So another thing coming up there we're going to show is there's a Tirpitz that's going to come down from the northern side of B cap. And you can see that he is fighting one of my battleships in the Shiratsuyu. And that I'm going to make an example of that nice little butter zone that I think more smaller caliber ships, Royal Navy ships, and some other destroyers need to learn to shoot battleships. I understand you shooting HE into the superstructure. I even understand you shooting AP into the superstructure. But all the battleships have this nice little butter spot, this nice little soft spot that is above their belt armor, above the torpedo belt armor, but just below the deck. They all have this nice little butter spot in there that even low caliber AP can get into and do some decent damage to. And the bonus is if you miss it high, you hit the superstructure. If you miss it low, well then you just bounce and then you just bounce. As you're going to see me right here, when this Tirpitz clears the island right here, that I'm going to be aiming right at his belt armor, right above his belt armor and below the deck. You'll see it on the next salvo when I zoom in. You see where my aiming is at. I'm going to adjust it down. I'm aiming right there, and you see, get a nice little damaging shot there. Granted, he was already going to die from other ships, but that is an example of the place that you need to aim for battleships when you get their broadside, and you can do some serious damage there. You'll actually do more damage scoring hits there than you will hitting the superstructure. Versus the Iowa, we're going to see a little bit of a better view of it, and also you're going to see a little bit of me bad position again, but this time I do it on purpose because I already know this game is a win. We've got it pretty much in a bag. There's no way these two battleships are going to come back from this. But how I got into this Iowa is, you know, bad positioning. So in a little bit of a way, I didn't mind if I got killed at this point because I was just going to be, I was the ship closest to the Iowa, going to be providing spotting, and I want to do some damage. The Iowa does what he does, stays angled to the battleships, and he has broadside shots on one of the battleships, if I remember right. So that's probably what he was shooting at instead of me. But he could have easily punished me pretty hard by the way that I was sitting broadside onto him. But luckily he didn't do that, so we get to see how much damage you can actually do to a higher tier battleship. Now it is an American battleship. We know that their armor isn't the best, but this works against all battleships. You're going to see me targeting the Iowa above his belt armor, below the deck, nice little sweet spot, and you're going to see some nice damaging salvos to a broadside battleship. Now, Royal Navy cruisers, torpedoes. I have the highest hit rating of torpedoes, I think, of all my ships, and it's with this Fiji, even more than my destroyers. As you can see where I'm aiming, I come out of it, it was stuttering a lot. But where I'm aiming at, as you can see the numbers, and I'm hitting where I'm aiming is above the torpedo belt, just below the deck armor. I get a nice little hit with the torpedoes right there where you see the AP salvo was 6,000. And I'm aiming at that nice butter spot. You'll see the next AP salvo, 3,100. Now I know he's broadside to me, but if he hit the belt armor, you know, he can be bouncing all over the place, and I'm not shooting the nose. Again, look, 6,500. And I'm shooting him midships, but I'm not hitting his superstructure. I'm actually hitting his ship just above the belt armor. And there I get the kill. I did a lot of damage to a tier 9 battleship. Yes, I know that it was a broadside battleship. I was actually in bad position. If he had decided to swing his back gun over to me, which I was watching, by the way, and it was coming over, he could have done some serious damage to me. Again, another example, the Nagato, I'm going to be aiming at the same spot at a little farther distance. I'm aiming at that area just below the deck above his belt armor. As you can see, from 5.5 kilometers away, I did, salvo right there and combined for 3,000 damage. There's one for 18. There's 512. I'm pretty sure that one actually hit, all of the shells hit the armor, the belt. And even from this distance, 18 again. Granted, it's not a whole lot at this range, but for this caliber gun to the ship, this kind of armor that he has right there, that's just a spot you need to really aim for. Destroyers, don't YOLO rush. You cause a lot of headache to your team, and it can actually cause a team to lose the game early on if you YOLO rush like that. So this ended up in a victory, did some nice damage, got some nice credits out of it, and destroyers, don't YOLO rush.